Hello everyone and welcome to the shop. For today's video, I'm going to show you how to tile a shower. Remodeling a shower is a dusty job, so make sure you prep your work area ahead of time. Be sure to cover the tub with plywood or attach a tub cover if you are tiling over a tub. If you have finished floors, you can protect these with a tarp or construction paper for the duration of the project. If you are tiling over a tub like we are here, you want to go around and check all of your existing studs to make sure that they are touching the back of your tub flange. If you encounter any of your studs not touching the back of the tub flange, you can fix this problem by screwing a new stud to your existing stud while making sure the new stud is touching the back of the tub flange. Now that we've prepared our framing, it's time to install the tile backerboard. I'm going to be installing a waterproof foam tile backerboard. If you're installing something different than what I have here, be sure to check their installation instructions and follow those for the next few steps. So now it's time to measure and cut all of our waterproof boards. We are going to start by measuring our walls. You can then transfer your measurements to the boards and mark them accordingly. To cut the boards, just score them with your knife, snap at the cut line, and cut the back of the board to complete your cut. To cut around the valve, shower head, and tub spout, you can just cut the holes in a square with your knife. Since we are tiling over a tub with a flange, we are going to notch out the back of the board so it sits flat to our studs. First, we will score the back of the board to the depth of our tub flange. Then, we will fillet the side of the board with our knife, which allows space for the tub flange to sit behind our board. Before hanging the bottom row of boards over the tub flange, we will be adding a bead of sealant to the tub flange to ensure it is watertight. Now you can place your board on the first wall, ensuring it sits flush on your flange and embeds in the waterproof sealant by pressing down firmly along the board and flange. We will be hanging our backerboard with the approved screws 12 inches apart. Once we hang our first row of boards and before we hang our next board, we need to add sealant between the seams and inside corners where two boards meet. You can place your next board sliding it down into your bead of sealant. Continue placing your screws 12 inches apart. Once you complete the back wall, you can move on to the side walls, starting with the sealant at the flange. It's very important once you start your side walls that you place sealant on the inside corner before placing your next board. Make sure your seams meet up to the bead of sealant to ensure a watertight connection between the two walls. Using your putty knife, you can spread out the sealant that oozed out from all joints, making sure it lays flat and doesn't cause obstructions when you're tiling. To waterproof your screw holes, apply a dime-size amount of sealant over the screw and washer and spread flat using your putty knife. You can aim for at least a 2-inch area over all the screws. To waterproof the seams, apply another bead along the outside of all the seams and inside corners and spread evenly with your putty knife. To finish off our waterproofing, we are going to add a bead of sealant where the backerboard meets the tub. As a quick tip, you can add blue tape along the top of the tub for easy cleanup when you're finished waterproofing. Before moving on to the next step, just take a look and make sure all screw holes, all seams, and all inside corners are covered evenly with sealant. Okay, so now that waterproofing is complete, there's still a few things left that we need to do before we can tile this shower. The first thing we need to do is choose our spacer size. Then we need to plan out our layout. And finally, we need to choose our trowel size before we can tile. Some tile manufacturers will reference which spacer size you will need for your tile right on the box. Make sure to follow their guidelines as some tiles have variations in sizes, and not following this can result in an installation that has uneven grout joints. If your tile manufacturer doesn't specify the spacer size, you can go ahead and choose a size you think will look best. For the best layout, you will want to center the tile horizontally along the length of the back wall. Measure the length of the wall and divide that by your tile size plus your spacer size. This will tell you how many full tiles will fit along the back wall. Next, you want to find your center line. You can do that by dividing the back wall measurement in half. Once you mark your center line, you can do a dry fit with your tile to check to see if you should split a tile on your center line or use the grout joint as the center and place a tile on either side. Work your way out from this line with your dry fit to check for small cuts on the inside corners. You can make adjustments if necessary to get the best layout possible. Do the same thing for the vertical layout, measuring from the top to the bottom and dividing by the tile size plus a spacer to see how many full rows of tile you will have. It's best to leave the cut row at the bottom and start your layout at least one tile row up and cutting in the bottom row last. When choosing your trowel size, it is key to choose a size based on the size of the tile you're going to install. As a general rule, you can use a 3/16 by 1/4 inch V-notch trowel for mosaic tiles that come on a sheet. A 1/4 by 1/4 square notch trowel for tiles 4 to 8 inches in length. and a 1/4 by 3/8 square or U-notch trowel for 8 to 16 inch tiles. Finally, you can use a 1/2 by 1/2 inch square or U-notch trowel for tiles that are 16 inches and larger. Using a level, place your ledger board at least 1 tile length up from the base of your shower. Take note where your studs are and make sure to screw into studs along the ledger board. Don't worry about these holes, we're going to re-waterproof them later. So we're all prepped to set tile. Now it's time to mix up our thinset mortar. First, add the proper amount of water specified on the instructions for the thinset mortar you will be using for your project. Next, add the powder. Following the instructions on the bag, mix using a high-speed drill. Be sure to double check on the bag if the thinset requires a slaking period. Once you're done mixing, you can double check the consistency with your margin trowel. It should be a creamy consistency that is not too runny, but not too thick, and free of clumps and dry powder. Once you're done mixing, you're ready to set tile. We finally made it to the most exciting part of this video, and that's setting tile, so let's go. Using your bucket scoop or margin trowel, place a good amount of thinset onto the flat side of your trowel. Next, you will be applying the thinset with the flat side of the trowel, called burning in the thinset. This promotes better coverage behind your tile installation. This is especially important in a wet area like a shower. Next, add more thinset to the flat side of your trowel. Apply it to your wall. Only this time, we will be going back over the thinset with the notch side of the trowel. Be sure all your notches are going in the same direction. Another key step for getting great coverage is also burning in the thinset to the back of your tile, like we just did with the wall. You will not need to add notches to your tile, only the wall. Place your first tile along your layout line and collapse your thinset fully by moving the tile back and forth in the opposite direction of your trowel lines. This will remove all air from behind your tile and give you the desired coverage for a shower, which is 95%. Once you place your first tile, you will want to check the coverage on the back by carefully removing it with your margin trowel. This is what the proper amount of coverage should look like. Here is what improper coverage will look like. If you find you're not getting proper coverage behind your tile, it is good to move up to the next size notch trowel to add more thinset, assuming you are following all of the steps I mentioned before. Be sure to check your first few rows of tile with a level across to ensure you are remaining level. Do the same to the face of your tile installation, ensuring an even and flat tile installation free from lippage. Just make sure the level is touching the surface of all of the tiles on the wall. As you tile a few rows, you may want to take a break and clean out the grout joints from any large amounts of thinset using a grout brush or toothbrush. This will make it easier at the end of the project because thinset hardens more and more over time, which will make it much harder down the road to clean. You can also use a pick for any harder to reach areas while the thinset is still soft to remove chunks of thinset as well. So at some point in time in your tiling project, you'll reach a point where you will need to cut your tile. For this particular project, I'm installing ceramic tile, so I'm making most of my cuts using a snap cutter. To cut ceramic tile, you can either use a wet saw, a dry cutting saw, an angle grinder, or the snap cutter. A few other places that you will have to cut around is things like the tub spout, the shower valve, and the shower head. For the tub spout and the shower head, you can use a diamond hole saw bit on your drill to cut the holes. For the things like the shower valve, since they vary in size so much, I would recommend using your wet saw, your dry saw, or your angle grinder to make these cuts. For more information on how to cut tile using a saw or an angle grinder, please check the video linked below on how to cut tile. So something you'll definitely want to consider in the planning phase of tiling a shower is how to finish your tile edges. Now this is going to be located typically where the shower wall terminates and your drywall begins on the outside of the shower wall. You have a few options here. For this project, I'm using a metal profile. Basically, you just set it into the thinset like I have here, and you set your tile right up against it. It's as if you're just creating a termination for your tile instead of seeing the raw tile edge on the outside side of the shower. If you want to know a couple more ways of how to finish your tile edges, you can refer to the video linked down below. Okay, so no matter how much you clean your tile installation as you tile, when you come back the next day or a few hours later, you're probably going to end up with something that looks like this. Now, you're going to want to remove all of your spacers and do a quick clean before you move on to installing any other tile or to the next phase of your project. If you wait any longer than cleaning it the next day, you will have to use something a little bit stronger like a utility knife to get the thinset out of the grout joints, which can risk chipping the tiles. Now that all of our walls are tiled, we can go ahead and remove our ledger board so that we can tile to the tub. Be sure to use your waterproof sealant to waterproof those screw holes and any other areas that may have gotten damaged while hanging your ledger board before completing your tiling. Make sure you leave at least 1/8 inch gap around the tub or shower pan for expansion when placing your final row of tile at the base of your shower. So now that we're finally finished shedding our tile, it's time to clean and get ready for grout. So what we're gonna do is do one final clean and make sure that there's no built-up thinset stuck in our grout joints or on the surface of the tile. All right, so now it's time to grout. We're gonna be using a bag mixed grout, which comes in a powder form that you have to mix with water. Just double check with the instructions on the back of the bag for the grout that you're using to get the proper mixing ratio of powder and water so that you can get the right consistency. Place some grout on your grout float using your margin trowel and start applying the grout to your tile walls with the short side of the grout float. You can go back and use the long side of the grout float to really fill up the grout joints and wipe away a majority of the grout from the surface of your tile. Be sure to pay close attention to your inside corners and that they don't get filled up with grout. We need to leave this area clear for expansion and we'll fill this with silicone later. To clean the grout, just use your grout brush with some water before letting the grout dry. Once your walls are grouted, let the grout dry for the specified time allotted by the grout of your choice. You can check if the grout is dry by touching with your finger. Once the grout is dry, use a clean damp sponge to begin the process of cleaning the surface of your tile. Using circular motions, clean the surface of your tile, flipping your sponge and rinsing in clean water periodically. Continue these steps until all the surface grout is cleaned off your tile. Once your initial clean is complete, you may notice a grout haze film on the surface of your tile. If that does occur, we will have to do a second clean. To do this, grab 2 buckets of water, a clean sponge, and a dry microfiber towel. Begin your final clean by using a damp sponge to start cleaning the surface of your tile. After years of practice, I found using 2 buckets is the best way to go. So 1 bucket remains with the dirty water and 1 remains with the clean. I dunk my dirty sponge in the dirty water bucket, wring it out, and dunk now in the clean bucket. And then I wring that out back in the dirty water, so I'm only applying clean water to my walls each time I dunk into the clean bucket. This cuts down on grout haze significantly. Follow up each clean section with a dry microfiber towel. Repeat until all walls are complete. Once all walls are cleaned and dry, you should be able to see if all grout haze has been removed. The final step in the process of tiling a shower is to silicone the changes of planes for expansion. We are using a grout match silicone caulk and placing it where the walls meet the tub and on the inside corners. You will want to first lay a generous bead of silicone in the corner you are caulking. Next, you can spray your ammonia-free glass cleaner on the bead. This helps to stop your silicone from sticking to the surface around the area you are working in. Your last step is to use a caulking tool to press the silicone into your joint and slowly remove any excess, being sure to wipe the tool often to avoid the silicone from spilling over on your tile or tub surface. All right, everyone, so there you have it. For this video, we went over how to tile a shower. We started off with bare studs, we prepped our walls, we hung our waterproof backerboard, waterproofed the entire shower, we planned our tile layout, we tiled, we grouted, and we finished off with siliconing our changes of planes for a complete tiled shower. I hope this video helps you on your next tiling project. Stay tuned for more videos, and we'll see you on the next one.